Abusua mu bibi akwa famra 2K News and Blogs eso abusua as usual yaba ne say ne chese. Nsɛm ahodoɔ a ɛkɔ so ɛwɔ Ghana ha sei ni the various political parties sɛdeɛ abere a mesika no ɛno ane aba ase a mede ba abɛso mo mesɛ so adaroma yɛbɛkɔ ne akɔ akɔtie nsɛm ne yɛhwɛ sɛdeɛ ɛsi tie pɛn yi ane mesɛ sɛ wobɛnya berɛ wobɛgye berɛ na wobɛnya adagye na wahwɛ video yi ɛde akɔ akɔsi ama me adaroma wonya subscribe ma 2K News and Blogs channel yi a na wasubscribe ɛde ama me wohwɛ wie a wobɛtumi nso de comment aba wo comment section hɔ nom nsɛm no sɛdeɛ ho teɛ wobɛtumi akenkan ɛde ama wo mempɛ sɛ meka sɛ bɛyɛ yɛnkɔ yɛnkɔtie saa nsɛm nkyɛ mu pɛi ɛmmra.
Yes, I called and labeled the vice president and his government as the most useless government, criticized them to a point where Mr. Mahama called me and thanked me for standing by the NDC. The vice president had all the powers to send people to attack me and my workplace or throw me in cells. He didn't do that. Instead, he came to Tamale and called me for dinner through Chairman Samba and Dr. Anta, a great mark of tolerance and good leadership. Dr. Muhammadu Bawumia, I'm sorry, he says, I was attacked by the NDC for criticizing Mr. Mahama within the space of 5 minutes, and because of that, I'm not on radio again. Forgive me, sir. Hashtag solid brand, he says. Now, this is his resignation as published to the general manager of Radio Tamale, PO Box 63ER, Tamale. He says, I'm writing to formally tender my resignation as the drive time presenter at Radio Tamale, effective immediately. The decision has not been an easy one for me, he says, but recent events have made it clear that my continued presence at the station is untenable. As you are aware, he says, I was recently suspended for criticism leveled against former President John Dramani Mahama and the National Democratic Congress on my radio program. In my exercise of objective journalism and freedom of speech, I was attacked by NDC thugs and my car got badly damaged in the process. An incident that immediately preceded my suspension. While I understand the need for impartiality and professionalism in broadcasting, I cannot in good conscience stand by while political interference stifles free speech and honest dialogue. It is clear to me that my values and principles no longer align with those of Radio Tamale, and I believe it is in the best interest of both the station and myself to part ways. I'm grateful for the opportunities and experiences I have had at Radio Tamale, and I will always cherish the relationship I have built with my colleagues and listeners. I hope that my resignation will allow for a smoother transition and wish the station continued success in its future endeavors. Sincerely, Halik Musa, DJ Tell, he calls himself, and that's how he's left the radio station. That's how he left it. So he's gone from the radio station. We are hoping to get an interview with him sometime very soon, and
have expenditure not exceeding 105% because of the current revenue. I'm even proposing a tighter fiscal rule where expenditure will not exceed 105% of the previous year's tax revenue, so that you don't get into a situation where you are making optimistic revenue forecasts and then go ahead to do the expenditure which doesn't get realized. So we are, looking at a more stringent fiscal regime to do this in addition to that. So I think that the policies that I'm proposing are really very consistent with the fund program. I don't see any inconsistency at all. Wale FM was asking about the Pualugu Dam, and I think that it is something, and I think we had another question on it also. The Pualugu Dam is very important for agriculture in the north in general. It's important for flood control. It's also important for the generation of hydropower, and this is why we call it the multi-purpose Pualugu Dam. And if you see the sort of damage the release of the water from the Bagri Dam does annually to our people, their homes, their crops, their animals, is heart-wrenching. And the idea that we are looking at a dam which would span large areas of the northeast and upper east regions, bringing in play about 28,000 hectares for irrigation. It tells you that it's a game changer whenever we get this dam done. Of course, the dam, as initially planned, was to cost about $1 billion US, as you rightly said. But we quickly ran into major issues following the COVID pandemic, and so many plans that were there we couldn't realize, no access to the capital markets and so on. So we're going to have to relook at the funding model for the Pwalugu Dam and bring in grant financing as well as private sector financing because of the opportunities that exist for the private sector with all of this agricultural land coming into play and all of that. So I think that is the issue. The issue of the universities in the new regions, I think a statement has already been made on that issue, that every new region should have a tertiary institution, ideally a university, and I think that is something I will support. The issue of what happens when people, how do I feel when people insult me? I mean, when you are in politics, it's par for the course in a sense. There's not much you can do. I mean, people just, for no reason, but for their own parochial reasons, just will insult you. But as long as it doesn't stop me from doing what I want to do for the people of Ghana, I will not be perturbed. As long as they keep insulting me, I'll keep getting things done for our people. I think that the issue has come, I think, in the area of the creative arts. I think it's a very, very, very important area for our economy. It's one of those areas, frankly, that, over the time, we have not really invested enough in. But my own view is that the returns to investment in this area are huge, because we have just natural born talent in this country. Talent that, cannot be really replicated in many areas, and talent that we can get a lot out of in terms of the economy and so on. So my general view of the creative arts and area and tourism is that it's a major growth pool for the economy, an area that we should pay attention to and invest in. If you look at what we've done so far in the area of the creative arts and so on, in the area of governance, we've set up the National Film Authority to evolve the dynamics of sustaining and culturally conscious film industry. We passed the Creative Arts Bill and set up the Creative Arts Agency to develop the creative arts industry. The LI on tourist sites was also passed. And we've completed the draft on the creative arts education policy. In terms of infrastructure, which is, usually the tourism and the creative arts tend to go hand in hand. We've completed the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park, the upgrading of the Kintampo Falls, the Bunsu Eco Park, the Nzulenzu Village, Salaga Slave Market, Pikworo Slave Camp, Tafi, Atome Monkey Sanctuary, Bonwere Kente Museum. All of these works have been completed, and we have ongoing projects in the Nationalism Park, Taneboasi Sacred Grove, G's Park, the Creative Arts School, and Denchura Chechewere Eco Park. These are pieces of infrastructure that we are working on. Of course, in terms of marketing, as was noted earlier, we've instituted the Year of Return, the Beyond the Return, December in Ghana, Ghana Week in DC, Washington DC, and Ghana Week in South Africa. And we're providing support for various agencies. Grants have been given to Menchia Museum, Bisarabewa, Pan-African Heritage Mission, the Film Support Program for Film Producers, also by the Ghana Tourism Authority. You have the film pitch by the National Film Authority, and the support for several festivals and events, including the Chalawote, Little Havana, Rhythms on the Runway, Bedside Festival, and so on. So I think that if you look at some of these things that we've been doing, there's been quite a bit that has been done, and we need to do quite a bit more. I think that one of the areas that I was having a discussion yesterday, I think, which has just also been mentioned here, essentially to do with a collection of royalties, and how it was brought to my attention yesterday by someone just in a discussion, and I think that is something that we have to, because it looks like the nature, from what I hear, some of our artists have designated people either in the United States or somewhere to do the collection of the royalties and so on. We need to have a better approach and help Camro in this area. I think that we're going to use tax incentives, including the flat tax, to incentivize private sector investments in tourism and the creative arts. We want to implement an e-visa policy for all international visitors to Ghana to make visa acquisition fast, and roll out a visa-free policy for all nationals of African and Caribbean countries visiting Ghana. We'll also establish, in partnership with the private sector, a streaming and digital management platform for Ghanaian content developers in the creative arts industry. And we want to also establish a travel protocol service for the creative